whilst sorting through the various bits and pieces that I've saved over the almost 2 years that we've been looking at Kylie's case, I came across this interview. Now, what is interesting is that most of this interview is no longer available. There's definitely something super satisfying about going through your stuff and stumbling on something that is labelled deleted interview. Or I think it was Lindsey interview since deleted. So I was going to just play it straight through, but having looked at the first part of it already, there's a few things where I think I'm going to pause it and just point things out, because there's a few interesting things in here, a few things that we may have forgotten, or things that just haven't been said in a really long time. So let's have a look.
Investigators in Northern California say next week they will scale down search efforts for a missing teenager who disappeared from a party more than 10 days ago. Kylie Rodney vanished. Here's her picture in the town of Truckee in the early hours on August 6th, Friday night. That day, the 16-year-old cell phone last pinged near the Prosser Lake campground, but it's been off ever since. Joining me now is Kylie's mom, Lindsey Rodney Neiman. Good morning. Thank you so much, Lindsey. Talk to me about getting that word that they have scaled back in this search for your daughter. What do you want people to know out there?
Well, what I think is important to remember right now is while one part of the investigation, the searching in the local area has scaled down, at this particular time, they have not scaled down the actual investigation part of this case. In fact, there were even more personnel being brought up the same day to address that part of our search for her as the search and rescue were going home to rest.
Now, I am going to ask before I continue that in the comments section that we are respectful towards Lindsey. I know there's been a lot said about her demeanour and her actions and her words after Kylie was found, but I don't think talking about Lindsey in that way is going to solve anything for us. And I think it's, at this point in time, it's unimportant, and we don't know what Lindsey was going through. We don't know what sort of sedatives they had her on while Kylie was missing. We don't know anything about her personal situation. So for this video, I'm only going to focus on the information that is being shared. Now, something that was shared here that I thought was really important, and which I overlooked, and I'm not sure if it was actually mentioned when they were talking about scaling down the search, but Lindsey mentioned here that while they were scaling down the search, they were bringing in additional investigators. So I think from memory, and I'd have to go back and look at that, I think when we were told that they were scaling down the search, they were saying that it was going to be a combined effort from various agencies. But I don't recall them saying that they were actually bringing in additional investigators. I think that's interesting, given all that we've found out since Kylie was found. Maybe we can hope for justice for Kylie.
Well, that's definitely got to be comforting for you. Walk us through the last details of that evening. You were text messaging your daughter.
That's right. It was very similar to so many other nights that we have lived in our life. And she was going to the party. She let me know. She checked in. She asked for a later curfew for the night. That was not an unusual request. I went ahead and granted it like I had so many times before. She had asked for a 12:30 curfew at 11:45. She realized she was still there for probably about another half hour.
First of all, let's talk about curfew. So we've been given 2 curfews. We were told that she had an 11:30 curfew, and we were also told that there was a 12:30 curfew. Interestingly enough, evidence of this 12:30 curfew vanished, including this interview. So, did she have a 12:30 curfew? But the thing that I find really significant here is that Lindsey said that she had basically asked at 12:45 to extend her curfew because she realised she was still there for about another half hour. That's really interesting language. If you're saying you realise you're going to be there for another half hour, that to me implies that she had no option. She had to stay for another half hour for some reason. Otherwise, wouldn't she be saying, well, she wanted to stay another half hour? And we also know from one particular interview with Angela Muslim that Kylie had told friends at 12 o'clock that she wanted to go home. So the thing I'm taking away here is that there was something that was preventing Kylie from going home when she wanted to go home. What was that? Why did she need to extend her curfew? We've said in the past, so many of us, that it seemed odd for her to extend her curfew, especially given this is a 16-year-old girl who her licence alone would imply a curfew on her. And this is a girl who had decided to go to the party at the last minute, who was planning on going camping the next morning. So all things that to me would imply that she wasn't planning on staying overly late. And now we have Lindsey saying that she realised she was still there for about another half hour. Even just the fact that it was an approximation about another half hour, to me implies that Kylie was reliant on somebody else for something, for some reason. Or that there was something out of her control that was preventing her from leaving the party. We've heard various speculations. We've heard one comment that she used the excuse that she was a designated driver and that's why she had to stay later. I've speculated that perhaps she was an alibi for Mags. Well, not so much an alibi, but perhaps Mags went to the party with Kylie. The plan was to sneak off with her boyfriend and then come back and go home with Kylie. Perhaps Mags hadn't returned. There was also speculation of her perhaps needing to sober up a bit before she could drive. But I'm also wondering if perhaps someone had slipped something into Kylie's drink and she wasn't feeling so good and she wanted to take a bit of time before she drove. So many possibilities, but Lindsey saying this particular thing certainly raises questions for me. What was it that prevented Kylie from leaving the party at the time that she had intended on leaving?
And knew that that meant that she wasn't going to be getting home until probably closer to 12:45. And so even though it was only going to be maybe 15 minutes later than normal, she still sent me a text to let me know, because she is so good about always checking in and keeping me updated with her plans up to the current moment.
She is so good at keeping me up to date. This here, straight from the horse's mouth. That wasn't Kylie at the roadside call out. If that roadside call out did actually occur, it was Kylie's car, then that wasn't Kylie. Because if she had the option of using a phone to call roadside assist, she also would have contacted her mother. Also, if she had needed to stay overnight for some reason, she would have contacted her mother. It doesn't matter if Lindsey fell asleep. Kylie would have texted her. This, to me, is one of the big red flags. Definitely, Kylie was too responsible to get herself so wasted and drive into a lake. She was too responsible to spend the night sleeping in her car and then call roadside assist without contacting her mother. This, to me, is one of the big things that says that there was definitely foul play that occurred in relation to Kylie's death. Whether it was an accident that was then covered up, or there was something intentional that happened. But it certainly wasn't Kylie's doing.
Who did she go to the party with?
She went to the party with one of her dearest friends.
Have you been able to have a conversation with that friend?
Time and time again, we are family friends, and so our daughters are best friends. I'm best friends with her mom. Our husbands are dear friends. They're practically our family up here.
Now, with her talking about the family connections and her own close connections with the mother, to me this can only be that she's talking about Mags. And that's the story that was given to us all along, that Kylie went to the party with Mags. I'm just curious, because when she's asked about who she went to the party with, she pauses before saying dearest friend. She went to the party with, and then there's a pause, and then dearest friend. She's also mentioned that she's questioned her multiple times about what happened at the party, which I guess is why we had Anna Larson coming forward and saying the things that she did about the party. But I'm just wondering if there was anybody else who went to the party with Mags and Kylie. There's something that's being left out here, I believe. And I'm really curious to know what that little bit of information is that's been left out here in relation to who Kylie went to the party with. Was there someone else who went to the party with her and Mags? Is there someone else that's being protected? Or is there someone else that can't be mentioned for another reason? Interesting. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section.
What are you learning from investigators? Are they telling you any maybe possible theories that something that they think happened?
We have asked the investigators to focus on putting everything together to find our daughter and bring her home. And while they've been so great about being very transparent and open with sharing any information with us at any time, we really have asked them just to stay focused on their job and only bring things to our attention when they feel that it's really critical to do so.
That's actually a really long-winded way of avoiding answering the question. So I'm wondering if they did actually say that to investigators, only tell us information if it's utterly critical, or if that's a line because they've been asked not to share any information about the investigation. It could be either. And I don't think that we should criticise Lindsey in terms of her saying that we've asked them only to speak to us if it is critical information, because, like I said, investigators can lie in cases, and they can also ask people to lie or not give out particular information. So I think we'll just leave it at that.
As a mother, you know your daughter better than any investigator, better than any of her teenage friends. What does your intuition tell you here?
Right now, what I know is, I know what information we have in this investigation, and that in not knowing a lot about the end of the story still of that night, I'm focusing, as is my family, on staying in the moment and addressing our own self-care and healing our souls as best as we can. And part of our strategy in doing that is not allowing our imaginations to run away with any what ifs or what could be's.
This to me is really, really telling. So, when asked about her intuition, she pauses, and if you notice, she was really, really careful with her words. She was being really careful about what she was saying. She was saying that from what they knew about the investigation. But then she says, not knowing a lot about the end of the story. And then after a bit of a pause, she adds, of that night. As if to say that there is more to the story and not indicating any sort of finality. But to say not knowing a lot about the end of the story, to me, when you combine that with her comment to one of the media stations where she talks about her communications with Kylie, about her staying longer at the party, and her saying, and that's the last I ever heard of her, as in ever, like never, I'm not going to hear from her again. There are two things here which to me suggest that at this point in time, she knew that Kylie wasn't coming home. She had information about something having happened that meant that Kylie wasn't coming home. That would have to be so hard for a parent. And perhaps that explains her whole demeanour. Note also the way she talks about we're focusing on our own self-care and healing our souls. Part of which is not focusing on what ifs. Healing your souls. To me, that implies conclusion. That they know the end result. If they were still hopeful that Kylie was coming home, they wouldn't need to be healing their souls. She would be talking about maintaining hope and trusting in the process. But instead she's talking about healing her soul and not focusing on what ifs. And how often do we hear that conversation when people have gone through some traumatic experience, some life-changing traumatic experience that can't be fixed, that can't be reversed. And people say, we can't focus on the what ifs. That's not going to change what happened. This is quite significant for me. I believe that at this point in time, Lindsey did have knowledge about something happening to Kylie and that she knew that Kylie wasn't coming home. It must have been so hard to have to do this interview if that was the case.
Do you believe she's still out there somewhere?
Yes.
I hope so too. Lindsey Rodney Newman, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's not easy. We wish you the best. We've been showing the video of her vehicle, some of the clues with the sweatshirt and stickers. So hopefully you can get some leads somehow soon. My heart goes out to you.
Thank you so much.
I have to wonder what Lindsey was processing just then in her head when the interviewer asked her, "Do you believe she's still out there?" Because Lindsey paused before answering with yes. What was the full question in Lindsey's head that Lindsey was answering? Because I don't think Lindsey believes that Kylie was still out there and alive. Was she answering the question, do you think she's still out there to be brought home? Just a thought. Thank you for listening. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do. Right now I'm aiming for a goal of 1,500 subscribers. I'm only 5 off. Please hit the like button. Feel free to share. And please leave a comment below. And if you're interested in additional videos, some of which are my thoughts and speculations, my private speculations about cases, some of which are just videos about my local area and things like that. If you're interested in that kind of thing, there is a link for membership also included in the description of this video. Thank you.